The museum of last night's asterisk, the night she fell asleep in his arms. The city below their rooftop perch was a galaxy of fallen stars. Asterisk Leo watched her. This woman who had crashed into his life, like a carefully orchestrated accident, Alara, her name felt like a secret on his tongue. She was curled against his chest on a threadbare blanket, an empty wine bottle, and 2 glasses standing sentinel beside them. The April air was cool, but where their bodies met, it was summer. Asterisk, tell me again, she murmured, her voice thick with sleep and Malbec. About the moons of Jupiter. Asterisk, he smiled into her dark wind-tousled hair. Io, volcanic and angry. Europa, with its icy shell hiding an ocean. Ganymede, the king of moons. Callisto, scarred and ancient. Asterisk, which one am I? She asked. A game they'd started on their second date. Asterisk, tonight. He kissed her temple, breathing in the scent of jasmine and rain. You're Europa. All calm, gleaming surface. But beneath, a whole turbulent, beautiful, secret world. Asterisk, she sighed. A contented sound that vibrated against his ribs. And you're my gravity. Holding me in orbit, asterisk, they fell into a comfortable silence, watching the distant pinpricks of airplane lights drift like slow-motion comets. Leo's heart was a full aching thing in his chest. He'd known her for 3 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. It felt like both a lifetime and a heartbeat. Asterisk, it's getting late, he whispered after a while. I should get you home. Asterisk, no, she protested, snuggling deeper. The stars are better here. My apartment has a view of a brick wall and Mrs. Henderson's cat. This is my home, right here. Asterisk, he didn't argue. He couldn't. He'd found his home in her too. In the way her laughter dismantled his cynicism. In the way she listened, as if his every word was a revelation. She was a curator at a small art museum, a painter of wistful, fog-drenched landscapes she rarely showed anyone. He was an aerospace engineer who'd stopped looking at the stars until she made him see them again. Asterisk Leo. Her voice was a drowsy thread. Asterisk, yeah. Asterisk this. This is real, isn't it? It's not just the wine, or the rooftop. Asterisk, he shifted, tilting her chin up so he could look into her twilight eyes. It's the most real thing I've ever known. Asterisk, a tear escaped the corner of her eye, catching the ambient city glow. He kissed it away, tasting salt and sweetness. Her lips found his, a soft, lingering kiss that spoke of promises and a future he desperately wanted to map. Asterisk, don't let go. She breathed against his mouth as they parted. Asterisk, never. Asterisk, and he didn't. He held her as her breathing deepened and evened out, as the city's hum became a lullaby. He held her as she fell asleep in his arms. Her weight, a perfect, trusting anchor. He stayed awake for a long time, memorizing the feel of her, committing this tableau to memory. The blanket, the bottle, the stars, the woman. A perfect, fragile diorama of happiness. Asterisk, eventually, sleep claimed him too. The morning arrived not with a gentle sunrise, but with the blunt, gray light of a cloudy day filtering over the rooftop ledge. Leo stirred, his neck stiff, his arm numb under Ilara's weight. She was still asleep, peaceful, her eyelashes casting faint shadows on her cheeks. Asterisk, he hated to wake her. He extracted his arm with a wince, rubbing circulation back into it. He leaned over and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. Ilara, hey, sleeping beauty. We survived the night. My back, however, is filing a complaint. Asterisk, her eyes fluttered open. For a moment, they were unfocused, clouded with sleep. Then they settled on him, and the most breathtaking, sun-drenched smile spread across her face. It was a smile of such intimate, unguarded joy that it stole his breath. Asterisk, she reached up, her hand cupping his stubbled cheek. Her voice, husky with sleep, was clear as a bell in the quiet morning air. Asterisk, good morning, husband. Asterisk, Leo froze. The word hung between them, absurd and electrifying. Asterisk, he chuckled, a nervous, bewildered sound. Husband, that was some powerful Malbec. I think we just fell asleep. Sweetheart, no Vegas preachers, no license, asterisk, but her smile didn't falter. It softened, tinged with something like affectionate pity. She sat up, stretching like a cat, and looked at him with an unnerving familiarity. Asterisk, still joking, she said, shaking her head. You always make jokes in the morning. She leaned forward and kissed him, a deep, proprietary kiss that felt different. It wasn't the exploratory, passionate kiss of last night. It was a kiss of routine, of ownership. I dreamed we were on a rooftop. How strange. Asterisk, a cold finger traced Leo's spine. Ilara, we are on a rooftop. My rooftop. Asterisk, she looked around, truly seeing their surroundings for the first time. The blanket, the bottle, confusion flickered in her eyes, but it was quickly banked by a wave of what looked like tender concern. She turned back to him, taking both his hands in hers. Asterisk, Leo, my love, she said, her voice soothing. The trip was hard on you, wasn't it? The travel, the time zones. Dr. Evans said there might be episodes, confusion. She brushed his hair back from his forehead, a wifely gesture that felt like a violation. We're home, in our bed, well, on our roof, apparently. You must have been sleepwalking again. Come on, let's get you inside. I'll make you coffee, the way you like it. Asterisk, he recoiled, pulling his hands back as if burned. What are you talking about? What trip? Who is Dr. Evans? Ilara, this isn't funny. Asterisk, the concern on her face deepened into something heart-wrenchingly genuine. The conference in Zurich, you got back yesterday. You said you were jet-lagged. She spoke slowly, patiently, as if to a child. We've been married for 5 years. Leo, 5 beautiful, wonderful years. Asterisk, the world tilted. The rooftop, the city, the very air seemed to warp. This wasn't his Ilara. This was a stranger, wearing her face, speaking with her voice, but animated by a different life he wasn't part of. Asterisk, no, he whispered. The word ripped from somewhere deep and primal. No, we met at the planetarium 3 months ago. You spilled your latte on my blueprints. You paint landscapes you're afraid to show. You're terrified of escalators. You hate raspberries but love raspberry jam. We are not married. Asterisk, a shadow passed behind her eyes. A flicker of pain, sharp and sudden. She pressed her fingers to her temple. The planetarium. That was our first date. Of course, I remember. In my paintings, you're the only one who sees them. She looked at him, and now there was fear in her gaze. Fear for him. Leo, please. You're scaring me. This is the confusion Dr. Evans warned about. A side effect of the new medication. Maybe. Let's go inside. Let me call him. Asterisk. She stood, offering him her hand. It was the same hand that had traced constellations on his palm just hours before, but now it felt like a lifeline to a parallel universe. Asterisk. He looked at her. At the love and fear, etched so plainly on her beloved face, a love that was real, but not for him, not for the him he knew. A sob built in his throat. The heartbreaking twist wasn't a lie or a betrayal. It was a truth that had shattered and reassembled itself into a nightmare. Asterisk, she didn't remember their last 3 months. She remembered 5 years he had never lived. Asterisk, he took her hand, his own trembling. He had to know. He had to follow this horrifying thread to its end. Asterisk, okay, he said, his voice hollow. Let's go. Home. The house of another life, their home, was a brownstone 20 blocks away. In a neighborhood Leo had always liked but could never afford. Ilara had never mentioned living here. She fished a set of keys from her jacket pocket, keys he'd never seen, and unlocked the forest green door with practiced ease. She said, her voice gentle but strained. Home. The air inside smelled of lemon polish, fresh coffee, and the faint, familiar scent of her jasmine perfume. But underneath was the smell of a life lived, old books, wood polish, a hint of oil paint from a back room. It was not the transient, slightly chaotic scent of her rented apartment with the view of the brick wall. The entryway was lined with photographs, Leo's feet rooted to the hardwood floor. There they were, in a silver frame, a younger Ilara, her hair shorter, beaming in a white sundress next to a Leo who wore a beard he'd shaved off 2 years ago. They were on a rocky beach he didn't recognize. Another photo, them in formal wear, his arm around her, cutting a tiered wedding cake. His own smiling face, a stranger's joy frozen in time, stared back at him. A vacation shot in front of the Colosseum. A silly picture wearing matching Christmas sweaters. Every photo was a bullet. You see? Ilara said softly, watching his face crumble. It's us, my love. All of it. He walked past her, drawn like a ghost to his own haunted past. The living room was cozy, filled with books and art. Her landscapes, their landscapes were on the walls, framed and proud. A large, abstract painting hung over the fireplace. All violent reds and calming blues. It was signed in the corner, El Thorny. You paint? He asked hoarsely. She came up behind him, slipping her arms around his waist, resting her head on his back. The intimacy was a fresh agony. Only because you encouraged me. You bought me my first proper set of oils. You said my fog needed a champion. She paused. You really don't remember. He shook his head, mute. The doctor, she said, decisively now. I'm calling him. While she spoke in low, worried tones, on the phone in the kitchen, Leo wandered a trespasser in his own life. He found the bedroom. A king-sized bed, neatly made with a duvet cover he would have chosen. 2 nights. On his side, a book on celestial mechanics, a charging cable, a glass of water. On hers, a novel, a tube of hand cream, and a small framed photo of the two of them laughing. Noses sunburned. His legs gave way. He sat heavily on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. This was insanity. Elaborate, cruel prank. But the details, the beard he'd had years ago, the painting style he'd abandoned in college, the specific edition of the book on his nightstand. It was all terrifyingly correct, yet utterly wrong. Ilara returned, her face pale. Dr. Evans can see us in an hour. He says it's likely transient global amnesia, triggered by the jet lag and stress. He said to stay calm, that forcing memories could make it worse. She knelt before him, her hands on his knees. It's going to be okay, Leo, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I love you. That hasn't changed. He looked into her eyes, the eyes he'd fallen into for 3 perfect months. He saw her love, her steadfastness, her fear. She believed this. Every atom of her believed they had built this life together. A horrible, clarifying thought dawned on him. What if he was the one who was wrong? What if the last 3 months, the rooftop meetings, the shy courtship, the falling in love, were the dream? A fantastical, desperate dream his mind had conjured. Ilara, he whispered, his voice breaking, tell me about our wedding. She smiled through glistening eyes, relieved he was asking. It rained. A sudden, pouring summer rain, just as I was about to walk down the aisle. You ran out with this giant golf umbrella you'd borrowed from the caterer and escorted me, arm in arm, through the downpour. Everyone said it was bad luck. But you whispered, now our marriage is watered and will grow. And it has. It really has. Leo squeezed his eyes shut. That was something he would say. It was a sentiment that belonged to the Leo who loved Europa's hidden oceans. Not just the engineer who calculated orbital trajectories. He was unraveling. Dr. Evans's office was sleek and sterile. The doctor, a man in his 50s with kind eyes, listened as Ilara explained, her voice trembling. Leo sat silent, a spectator. Leo, Dr. Evans said, turning to him. Can you tell me what you do, remember? Leo spoke flatly, describing the planetarium, the 3 months, the rooftop last night. He saw the doctor and Ilara exchange a glance of profound pity. And before the planetarium, Dr. Evans asked. Before, I was working, living my life. Do you remember the conference in Zurich last week? The paper you presented on gravitational wave propulsion? Leo stared. It was a theoretical project he'd been toying with in private. No one knew about it. How do you know about that? Because you Skyped me from there, excited about the feedback, Ilara said, tears finally falling. You brought me back that ridiculous cowbell. Dr. Evans made some notes. It's a highly specific and complex paracosm, he said gently to Leo. Your mind, under stress, has constructed an entire, simplified narrative, a beautiful one. By the sound of it, to escape a more complicated reality you're struggling to integrate. The new medication for your anxiety can, in rare cases, catalyze such episodes. Paracosm, a private world. They were telling him his love for her was a fiction. His happiest memories were a symptom. The drive home was silent. Ilara held his hand, her grip tight. When they walked back into the brownstone, she led him to the couch, wrapped a blanket around him, and brought him tea. I don't know how to be him, Leo confessed. The truth, a desert in his mouth. The man in those pictures. The man you married. You just are, she said, curling beside him. You're my Leo. You're kind, and you're brilliant. And you forget to put the milk away. And you snore when you're really tired. And you are the love of my life. The memories will come back. And if they don't, she took his face in her hands, her thumbs wiping away tears he didn't know he'd shed. Then we'll make new ones. We have time. All the time in the world. He wanted to believe her. He wanted this warmth, this certainty, this deep-rooted love. He ached for it. The lonely 3-month love story he clung to seemed pathetic in comparison to this fortress of shared years. That night, in their bed, she fell asleep quickly, exhausted by emotion, her head on his shoulder, a habit of 5 years. He lay rigid, staring at the ceiling. As dawn's first faint light bleached the room, he slipped out of bed. He needed air. He needed to shatter the illusion. He padded into the study, a room he'd avoided earlier. It was his space blueprints, models of satellites, textbooks. It was also meticulously organized. He began opening drawers, a thief in his own house, looking for proof of what he didn't know. In the bottom drawer of the heavy oak desk, under a stack of old journals, he found a small, locked metal box. He knew, with a cold certainty, where the key was. In the pottery bowl on his nightstand, amid spare change, was a small silver key he'd assumed was for a luggage lock. It fit. Inside the box were no secrets of state, no evidence of a double life. There were only 2 things. The first was a dog-eared positive pregnancy test. A date was written on the stick in Ilara's elegant hand. 18 months ago. The second was a folded sheet of watercolor paper. He opened it with trembling hands. It was a painting, simple and beautiful. A rooftop under a starry sky. 2 stylized figures lay entwined on a blanket. Below, the city lights were a soft bloom. In the corner, in her handwriting, was a caption. The night everything began. The night I knew, my sweet, impossible dream. And below that, a date. The date was yesterday. Leo's breath left his body. The world spun, and then snapped into a horrifying crystal-clear focus. She remembered. She remembered everything. The planetarium, the 3 months, the rooftop last night. She had painted it today, after they'd come back from the doctor. This was not her forgotten past. This was her cherished, secret present. The pregnancy test. The episodes Dr. Evans mentioned. The trip to Zurich he never took. He walked back to the bedroom, the painting clutched in his hand. She was awake now, propped on her elbows, the morning light haloing her. She saw the painting in his hand. All the gentle, wifely concern melted from her face, replaced by a raw, unvarnished grief. Ilara, he said. The word a plea and an accusation. Tears streamed down her face, silent and fast. I lost a baby, she whispered, the sound like breaking glass. A year and a half ago, it broke something in you, Leo, the man who ran out with the umbrella. He started to fade. The anxiety, the grief, it was a black hole. You retreated into work, into silence. You stopped seeing my fog. You stopped seeing me. She drew a shuddering breath. Then, 3 months ago, you came home from work. You looked at me as if for the first time. You said, "Have we met? I feel like I know you from the stars." It was the old you, my Leo, the one from the beginning. Dr. Evans called it a fugue state, a psychological retreat to a time before the pain. He said to go with it, that it might be a pathway back. She hugged her knees to her chest. So I did. I became the girl from the planetarium again. I gave us our love story back. Last night, on the roof, that was real. That was my husband. And this morning, when I called you that, it was a hope, a prayer, that maybe, by living it, we could make it true again. Leo looked at the painting, at their perfect, dreamlike night. He looked at the woman in their bed, who had loved him enough to follow him into his own delusion, to sacrifice her reality to try